to your Care Assist Point of Care training. So what we're doing today is I've got my training environment, which is up on the screen right now. I'm going to show you how to navigate in Care Assist Point of Care, which is the upgraded or newer version of same documentation that you're doing today that's just going to be done in a new location, and you're going to learn how to do that here today. Now, before I begin, I do want to say that attached to today's session invite, there is an attachment. If you have not printed that out and have it on hand now, that's fine, but I do strongly recommend printing it, because everything on here, we call this an education plan, and basically it will go through scenarios very similar to what I do live on today's session. And so it's a good way to circle back to any notes that you might need, and you can use this as a training tool moving forward. So if you have not printed it, definitely want for you to make sure you grab that off of today's session invite and make that readily available as you're moving forward with this transition. Now, with that being said, looking at the screen that I'm on right now, this is our Matrix Care Assist page. Now, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to log off temporarily. And as you see me, I clicked log out in this top right corner, and that brought me with this pop-up window that says, warning, logging out will close out all of your open Matrix Care sessions. Do you want to log out? And you simply say yes. So that logging out is kind of like a two-part process. It's log out and back in. Now, the difference that you're going to have in comparison with what you do today in what we call Gen 1 point of care is you currently log in to a device and you see a big blue screen and you find your name on the screen and then you type in a PIN number. With Care Assist, your logging in process will change to your screen will look like this on your devices that you use. They'll be upgraded to this. And when you go to log in, you're actually going to be having a username and a password that you will type into these fields, and then you'll touch a sign in, okay? With that sign in, that's going to bring you into the page you saw when I first turned on the screen share, okay? Whoops, besides that one. Now, with this right here, so with our Matrix Care Assist, which is what we call, well, where your point of care will be, is the very first time that you log in to Care Assist, you're going to see your screen very similar to mine. You're going to see the Matrix Care by ResMed Care Assist, and then you're going to see the care setting that you are working at up at the top, and it'll be white. And this will look exactly this way the very first time. Now, to engage with the product the first time, you will click on the matrix on your care settings name. And as a point of care user, you're not going to see this. So just pretend that you didn't see this line here. But then after you've touched the care setting that you have for your your SNF, you will then see the care settings. These care settings are the same as your layout that you have in your center today, okay? So when I see in your environment, just to give you context here, for Goldberg, for instance, your layout consists of Hall B East, Hall B South, and Hall B West. So what that means is you'll see those 3 units right here, okay? And then from there, you will select the unit that you are working on for that shift, okay? And you'll click on that particular unit. Now, once you've selected that unit, you're going to see the blue Start button engage in the bottom right corner, okay? When you don't have a unit selected, this is grayed out, okay? Now, note before I leave this page, after I've selected my community name, I never again will have to touch that. It'll stay green and your selection will stay green. So when I log out and back in, it's going to say, it's going to kind of retain what I logged into last time. So if I work on the same unit, all I have to do is say, yep, and start. If I'm working on a different unit today, then I select that other unit before I touch start. Okay, so that's just where am I at for the day. Now, once you do that, and I'm sorry, I've got all these educations popping up on here. But once I do that, you're going to see this screen. Now, this screen is the same for all Care Assist users. So today we're focusing on point of care, but when we do EMAR, you're going to start off and see the same thing, but your login process will be a hair different on the previous page. What I said, don't pay attention to that yes, no question. That's actually the nurse view that you saw a moment ago. But with this page, what we're actually looking at is all of my residents that reside on East Unit, which was the unit I selected, okay? Now up here in the center top right, you can see that I have 62 residents that reside on my East Unit. So what that means is I actually can see 62 resident tiles here, okay? And so if I counted all of those up, it would equal 62. Now, as you look at this list, the way that it's sorted by default is we are looking at all of my residents sorted from last name A to Z. So we can see Janet Ackerson here at the beginning. And if I go all the way down to the bottom, you can see Janelle Zawinski at the end. So they're alphabetized. Now, if I wanted to see these in a different order, I'm able to do so with this sort up here in the top right. Now in your login today, you basically will select A through C or D through F, and you're selecting kind of based upon the alphabet. Here, you're just seeing everything up front, but if I want them instead to be in the order of room number, I can change the sort from say location low to high or high to low, and that will put my lowest room number at the top and my highest room number at the bottom. So if I'm working and providing care to my residents as I navigate down a hall or up a hall, now my residents are in that order. So it's a very easy to change in that. And throughout your product usage, you can change that sort anytime for what's beneficial for what you're doing. For instance, if you are helping provide care for residents who are leaving a common area, like after a mealtime, you might choose to alphabetize by first name, okay? A to Z or Z to A. So all of those things can come for based upon what type of thing you're doing, the sort might fit different ways based upon your specific tasks and needs. Now, as we look at these tiles, you can see they all have last name, first name, unit, room, and bed. And you probably have photos of each of your residents, and you'll see those on the tiles as well. Okay. Now, something that's cool is I've got 62 residents here. Looking through this list, if I was like, oh, I need to chart on Ruth, well, I need to look through this. That's a hard thing to do. Well, up at the top middle of the page, you have a smart search. This line right here, if I want to search for a particular person by first name, I can just type in that name. And now you can see Ruth. Style is the only one sorted on the page. Or I could start to type in Jackson for his first name, or Janelle, Janet, J, because I put a J-A in here. So whatever I want to search for, I can do by first name, last name, or even room number. Room number is wonderful for new residents who have moved in. So maybe they don't have a door tag on their door yet and you're outside and trying to provide care. You can type in their room number and find out who resides in that particular room. So, excuse me, anything that is on the physical tile, you can use that as a search component. Now, you probably have a touch screen for your devices or your kiosks on the wall. So if this is a touch screen, you're seeing me just kind of delete, but on your touch screen, clicking this X will clear that out. Okay, so when you touch the screen, that will remove that. So that's how we're going to be able to navigate this page. Now, on those units, and I'm actually going to ask a question, and you can answer this in the chat or on audio. But for the question is with your units of west, south, and north or something that it was, do your aides get assigned to a full unit, or do you have like 2 aides per unit and they're assigned a certain number of rooms? Go ahead. You can play. Which is it?
Can you zoom in on your screen?
Can I what?
Are you able to zoom in a little bigger on your screen? Because we can't really see the name, like, and all the information that it shows.
I will when I get to the next page, but right now it's kind of important for me to keep this size on here.
Okay.
But the physical names themselves will come out, and I'll make sure when we're in the documentation space that I am showing that. But I need to do 2 or 3 more steps before I can blow it up, but I will.
All right.
Can I get a response to the question I asked, which is when you are assigned for your shift, when the aides come in, if you're on, say, East, is it one aide that has all of East and another has all of South and another has all of West? Or do you have like some of the rooms on that particular unit? What is your current practice?
It could be 2 or 3 aides in one hallway.
Perfect. And you do break them down to like maybe 1 through 7 is one aide and 8 through 12 is another, and you kind of give them a room assignment per se?
Somewhat, but like it'll be like it won't be like the first 6 rooms will be with a CNA and the next 6 rooms will be with another CNA, because you have patients that require specific CNA, like either a male or a female.
Okay.
So it'll be jumping from one.
I
In fact, you might have a CNA in the East Hall, and then they're also in the South Hall, just because of,
yeah,
their request.
For sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. So this next step that I'm about to show might be something you use and it might not. Okay. So depending upon how those assignments are doing, you're going to find which way's better. But normally this is something that's exclusive to the aide role as to if it's going to be used. So with everything I already talked about, here's our all residents. That's all my 62. If I need to see a smaller number of these rooms, like whatever that assignment may be, even if it is randomized for which rooms I have, but it's like I have these 2 and these 6 over here. What the my residence step is going to do for us is it allows me to create my smaller list. That's just what my shift assignment is. Okay. So the first time you are coming in here, I can click on this my residence, which will show that on my personal list, I have nobody selected. If I want to make that smaller list to match my physical assignment, I click plus add resident button, and this is now all 62 of the residents. And I'm able to say, okay, I have these residents here, okay? And maybe I also have room 401. And that smart search, whoops, I didn't mean to say okay there real quick, but that smart search, the same one we did before. So if I know that like the male in one room needs to have the male aide, and I know that's in this particular room, I can find all of my residents. And as I click on each one of these and make my full list, now I have my smaller shift assignment. And if I create that list, when I get into my tasks, I'm going to just see those residents for my focus residents of charting. The cool thing is if you do this, then the next time you log in, like tomorrow, it's going to remember what you had last time. And so at the start of your shift, the first thing would be to go to my residents and pull off anybody you're not assigned to today by using this X. And you can see, are you sure you want to remove Laura Eckhart from my resident list? I can say, okay, I've removed her from my list or my shift assignment, but she's still available in my all residents. So I still have access to everyone, but I can make that smaller list. Go ahead, John.
I think that alone right there is pretty significant for just for taking care of our residents and charting. So that's perfect. I love that.
Perfect. Yeah, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. And usually about this time, I'll get a question that somebody will say, well, what if somebody discharges? Do I need to take them off of my list? And the answer is no. Census will take care of that. Okay. So you will only need to remove them if it's just not on your assignment using the X. And then add anyone. So if my assignment is like a couple different rooms, I can grab those and then make my new list. So if I know I have 9 people assigned to me, you can check that you have everybody because you can see now that smaller number. And it is definitely something people like because then you don't have to scroll through and say, wait a minute, which one's mine? Oh, wait, am I supposed to do this one or that one? So that's really good. Now, in a moment, I will blow the screen up. John, can you remind me, your staff is using kiosks on the wall? Is that what
That's
they
correct.
charted?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, perfect.
They're using kiosks on the wall.
Okay, perfect. So with the kiosk view, the page is probably going to look similar to mine with the layout, but based upon the size of the page, the Care Assist page will adjust to the screen that you're using. So now that I've blown this up, you can see that my page looks a little different because it compresses it in. And if I get even, depending upon a view here, whoops, let me go one more. You can see how now it's changed. If it was more of like a iPad type size, you can see now I have 2 columns of this. And this is basically my example of the screen is going to adjust to the screen size of the device you have. So a kiosk is probably going to be similar to what I had on the front end, okay? But you will see that it adjusts. And if it does adjust, I want for you to note that your menus will drop into like these 3 lines, which some people will call a hamburger. Okay. But those 3 lines is how now I open my menu, similar to actions you would take like on a smartphone device where everything's smaller. So sometimes if you're on a different site, your menu's up here versus over here, or if you turn the device sideways, it changes. Same thing here. So when you first log in, just become familiar with how and if your menus for tasks aren't at the top of the screen, look for the 3 lines so that you can open your menu. And that will just be a switch based upon your device size. Okay. Now I'm going to drop it. Now it's really big, so I do have to drop it a little bit for that earlier request. Okay. But here's about as big as I can get to maintain some of the screen items. Okay. Now, if you ever had a resident, or I'm sorry, staff member who maybe has some residents on East and some on South, and you need to combine this list for that smaller list, what you will do is your name is in the upper right-hand corner. In the upper right-hand corner, if you ever need to get yourself to change the assignment to where I was on East, if I need a couple of the residents from South, I can use change assignment, which again, I clicked on my name. That will bring me back to this first page we were on. And now I can go grab the residents I need from the other unit that I'm maybe a split on. I see now my 39 residents for West. And if I go back to my residents and push add resident, now I can grab my residents from West. And now I have a combined list. So depending upon however your shift assignments are, you can do this particular list. And just know that the new change is the start of each shift. You're just going to adjust your my resident list, or what you would call your shift assignment. Okay. And once you have this, then you're ready to work. Now, I also, before we get into the full training piece, these little icons here, these are in product education tools. So I'm going to be showing you live how to navigate Care Assist point of care, but later on you can use these as a navigation. So this one will teach you again how to do the My Residence list. And if you get started, it will open up and navigate you and help you through that. And those are accessible inside of point of care at any time. Okay, so you can add those to your internal training in addition to today's session and people watching the recording. Okay, so now that I have my list made, we're going to bring your attention up here to the top where it says tasks. Tasks equals point of care, or POC. So when I click on this drop down, I can see my available chartings, which is resident tasks. This is the bulk of what you're used to charting today in your blue screen with the red highlight. And then we also have a batch entry of intakes and a batch entry of weights. So if you are someone who's assigned to doing the weights for the day, you can go to tasks and go to weight batch entry, and then all the residents will be on the screen and you can put everybody's weights in, and I'll demo that one in a moment. Intakes batch entry and weight batch entry work the same. Just one's entering the weights, the other one is your meal intakes. But we're going to go to resident tasks. That's how I'm going to navigate. For you all, if you only have access to point of care, you could click on a resident's name from this screen. But because I have EMAR access as well, if I click on this, it'll go to EMAR first. So I'm going to navigate this way. Okay. And now we're looking at POC. So as soon as I click on tasks, couple things to call out. Once I'm here, I'm going to see some numbers and icons up here at the top on my tasks tile or tabular. The 14 is a total count of how many residents I have at least one task remaining to chart on. That's what the 14 is. Okay, so at the top of the screen throughout the day, I'll see that number go down as I'm completing all of my residents. So that's just at a glance what's remaining. The GG that's in green, that one is going to apply for any of your residents who have functional ability tasks that are currently due. So that is in addition to my blue items, okay, or regular tasks. And this one is because they're priority, because we use those for MDS and all of that. Any of the residents that have GG, you will see the GG on their physical tile, okay, which in my environment is everyone. In your environment, it could be some yes, some no, but those are those two icons. Now, with that, so that's just a reference you see at the top of the page. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about this left-hand panel. So at the top, we also can see my tasks due, and I have 14, matches this number. GG, I have 14. So all of my residents have both regular task and GG or functional abilities that is currently due. So these filters, these are actually filters. They're not going to do anything for me right now because it's 100% of my residents. But as the day goes on and I click on this, this will actually filter through my smaller list and it will show me just those residents that have things remaining. Think of in your POC today, one of your filters is required. I think it says required or due, and you can click on that and it shows you everybody remaining. This is the equivalent in Care Assist. So you could use this and then siphon it, and only your residents that are due remaining would show up on the list. After I do a couple documentations, I'll come back to that filter. An additional POC charting right here. So another in-product education that you can activate. This one will actually say, select your resident, touch this item, and it actually will help you get through one physical charting. Definitely a cool thing to use, especially at the beginning, kind of helps navigate you through a task. And then we have the sort and the search resident. These are the same as what was on the previous page. So if I'm looking for Ellen, I can start to type in Ellen's name. Or if I'm standing outside room 311, I can click on here. So those are all different ways. And by using this search, that will prevent you having to do a lot of swiping on the screen. And if you're swiping on the screen, sometimes the window will close down or something like that. So if you do have any issues with people like the screen closing on the kiosk, then highly recommend less swiping and more of the search resident. That will prevent that action that can close the window down, okay? Just like you do on your phone, right? But this will be the same. So here you can see my first name A to Z. That was the last sort that I had on the previous screen. But if I want to go to high to low, here's my highest room and my lowest room at the bottom. Next, let's talk about this blue color. So in the past, you've looked at red highlights. Red highlights meant you need to do that charting. Now your new item is blue tile is due. So blue is due is kind of the new mantra to think of. And each resident's tile will display blue if they have one or more tasks that needs to be charted. Okay. Now, additionally, on the tile, you're going to see the resident's photo, their last name, first name, unit, room, bed, same as we had on the previous screen, but you'll additionally also see their code status banner flag. That will display as well on the tile for you. Now, when we go to chart on one of these residents, I'm going to switch this sort. We're going to go to Jacob here. So when I click on Jacob's name, you're going to see the right-hand side of the page populate. Now I can see a resident banner at the top of the page, and I have my charting space. Okay. Now this list over on the left, depending upon the size of your kiosk and you're doing your charting, you might say, I want to move this out of my way. This vertical blue bar here, this will hide the resident list. So if I click it, all those residents push off the side of the page. I now have a full screen for my charting. And when I'm done with this or need to go to another resident, I can open that right back up. Okay, so personal preference. Some people will hide their residents all day, every day. Some people forget that they're over there and go, how do I navigate to the next person? Each person's feel and comfort level, you can use it whichever is most comfortable for you. Okay, I'm going to keep mine open, okay, in this manner to show you the full screen view. Now we do see Jacob's name here in parentheses, or not parentheses, I'm sorry, quotations. We can see his preferred name from the face sheet. So if he has a nickname or preferred name that we can call him, then you'll see that in parentheses here, followed by age, date of birth, sex, unit, room, bed, and their physician, and a couple hyperlinks I'm going to get back to in just a moment. Okay. Over here on the right, you are able to see any allergies, diagnoses. For your allergies and or diagnosis, if their list is longer than one line of text, it will compress everything else. And to see the whole everything, you'll click the show all and it'll just give you a pop-up where you can read it all unobstructed. Instead of this banner getting bigger and bigger down the page, it just compresses it. So you can look at it when you need it, and then it's not in your way otherwise. Now, in your POC today, you have to click on a button in the upper right-hand corner that says resident profile, and then you're able to see these items. The things in the resident banner are kind of visible all the time, except for these two hyperlinks that I'm going to get into. So that's a nice thing for you. And then also administration instructions displays. Note that this banner looks exactly the same for all Care Assist users. So your nurses see this the exact same way. Okay. Diet is empty if you are not using the meal tracker product, which I am not. So it's empty. And it only populates from a meal tracker dietary order. So if you're not, and I don't recall if you're using meal tracker or not, if you're not, you're going to be able to find your diet information over in our profile. This is the profile you're used to seeing when you were clicking on the upper right hand, the resident tile in POC today. You touch the upper right hand corner and you would click a button. Now you can click this hyperlink, which will open this window. And these are the remaining pieces. First of all, my primary language, spoken language for the patient or preferred language. And then you're going to see anything that's pushed over here from your care plan approaches, your profile orders, alerts on the face sheet or face sheet notes. So if I expand my profile orders, this is a different resident. I'm in a different environment. Normally, I would see my diet here, and that's where I would look to see where the diet is. And you can see my profile care plan approaches. You can see those here. Anything on the resident profile means that the clinical users have checked the box that says include on profile when you enter a general order or on your approaches on the care plan. Those are those aid specific items that you choose to push over here. That's what's going to be shown in this space. In the view care plan, this is the entire care plan in its entirety, regardless, no extra action needed. It shows no matter what, Jake here only has one problem on his care plan. Sorry, it's a short one. But if I want to read that care plan, I can expand and see the problem, goal, all approaches, and of course, looking for my role of CNA, which items that I'm responsible for. And many times these are the same items that have been pushed over to the include on profile. So the aid, you always have access to the entire care plan without obstruction. And if I had had a resident with more problems on it, if I wanted to just read the whole care plan from start to finish, I could expand the whole thing and just scroll down the page until I'm done. When I need to close one of these windows, I can touch the close button at the bottom or the X at the top. They both do the same thing. Okay. And so that's really what we have over here. Both items fully available to you, same as they are today. Okay. Just new look. And then, of course, any banner flags. So on the tile over here where I talked about the code status is on the resident tile. Up here at the top, if I had additional banner flags on the face sheet for this patient, like DNR, DNH, DNI, if those were on hospice, managed care, all of those other banner flags that exist, they would all display across the top here as well. Jake here just only has a code status, but you would see all of the banner flags. And we also have on your project the fact that we have like clinical advanced insights. There's a banner flag for that for fall risk that will show here as well. So you'll see all of them depending upon your patient's condition. So that's our resident banner. Okay. Now, as I come down here, we're going to get into our documentation. Okay. So with the documentation, we are now doing the same charting that you did before, just a new space. Okay. So as I start to show you this, think of anytime you're seeing blue, it's exactly the same as that red outline you had previously. Okay. Red outline now is blue. So if I go into ADLs, new addition, you can see not only do you see the words of what the tile is called, but you'll also now see the visual icons that are relative to that particular charting. So for instance, ADLs, you can see walking, bed mobility, dressing and grooming, and bathing with these icons. That's really helpful if you have any staff members where English is not their first language. They might associate more with the pictures, icons, versus the words. And that can be a part of what you can implement into your training is looking at the icons or the words, whichever is best for your particular staff members. Additionally, blue will also include the blue clock. Blue clock is the equivalent of the blue tile, and that's helpful if your device, maybe the color schematic gets obstructed and you can't really see the blue, it's maybe grayed out the whole page. Excuse me. If there's coloring problems on the device, the icon is also what you can see that something is due. So that is another little piece that doesn't obstruct your ability to see the triggers. Okay, now we're going to go to that ADLs. Now, once I clicked on ADLs, I'm easily able to see the available ADL charting places and all of the coloring, new icons representing each one, and anything that is, looks like somebody stole my screen share. Let me put that back up. That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to put that back up on the screen. Nope, not a problem. Let's see if I can't just steal it back. There we go. So with that, here's my blue ones that need to be done. A white tile is not required to be charted, but it is available. Like I can still chart on a white tile should I choose or need to. How the charting is going to be is very much similar. Follow the blue. So if I want to do bed mobility, I click on bed mobility. Here's the same question that you chart today, just new page, new look. And how did the resident move in bed? And over to the right, you're going to see the due time. The time, and this is really important, one of the big questions that always comes back to me is that due time is the start of the current shift. So I think we had like a 15 or 30-minute overlap, John, when we did the build. I can't remember off of memory, but it was something like that. You had a little bit of an overlap. Whatever time yours triggers the reset, the same thing is coming here. That's just referring to which shift am I on. So I'm currently on my 3 to 11 shift. So the due time isn't saying I have to chart it at 3:30. It's that I'm in that 3 to 11 shift and I have my 30-minute overlap where I'm at 3:30 was where everything triggered. Okay, I still have my entire shift to do it just like you did today. Does that make sense for everybody? Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Perfect. You're welcome. So now we're going to go through and answer the same questions, same responses with the addition of the images. I like to call out here on this first one. So when you look at supervision, for instance, here's our resident, here's our caregiver standing back and just watching. Limited assistance, we have the resident with the caregiver providing small amount of support. Extensive assistance, the provider is right next to the resident, and we have the addition of a assistive device. So those icons really are helpful, and they can be really good training pieces as well. Now, if I have, how did we move? Let's see, how did the resident move in bed? Limited assistance. You're still going to see the same possible responses in the same manner, just new tile, new look, but the same charting. And you can see that limited assistance does not allow for me to chart no support or no setup or setup only, right? For the independent. So only my allowable responses. So if I do 2+ person, so I start from the top of the page, work my way down, and then I hit done, that item is charted. Tile turns white, and I get the last charted date and time on the stamp, the stamping of the tile. And if I come back later and the resident now is requiring even more support, I can always go in and chart again. Now I have a total dependence, 2+ person. And now, you know, an hour, 2 hours apart, I have two distinct different chartings that might be very relative to something going on. So you're never prevented from charting, but that white tile will always be available and you can see whatever time it was charted. And we would work through each one. So transfer, I'm going to go through a couple of these. Here you can see my assistive devices, select all that apply. The charting is exactly the same, just new tile, new look, okay? But I want to do these so that I can actually make my ADL tile turn white. If you have the activity did not occur, then you're going to be able to just hit done. And then bathing, if we have a not recorded, that one's going to allow me to say why. Was it the resident unavailable? Did they refuse, combative, etc.? And so 2 different ways those can be responded. And at this point, you can see I have all white tiles for my ADL column. And there was, while I was talking, the temporary green banner saying this task was charted successfully. Now, if I go back, see this little guy right here for ADLs, and then the resident charting is blue. That's a hyperlink for me to go back to the main page, okay? ADLs is now white because I've charted everything. And then you would have a similar items. Now, when I look at functional abilities, and I won't be charting 100% of these, but I want to give you exposure of situations because it's the same charting, just new location. But in self-care, for instance, one thing I didn't call out between my ADL question and the time is the question mark. This question mark exists in the POC you use today, and it exists here as well. If you click on that, that's my question specific help. And that will open up my help responses here. And I can see the question based upon CMS, what the question is, gives me additional guidance of what that question means or what to think of when I'm answering the question, and a listing of my available responses and what their description of the response is as CMS states. So MDS coordinators love to use this as a training tool, especially if somebody's overcoding or undercoding. And I also like to strongly recommend this to individual users because this is a way that I can help myself. So maybe I'm not sure what the difference is between a partial moderate assist versus substantial maximal assistance, right? Sometimes we're embarrassed to tell people that we don't know what's what, right? And we think it's this, but we might be wrong. This is a way that even if we're not using it as an educational tool coming from our MDS coordinator or DON, staff developer, I can open this and go, oh, okay, partial is when the helper does less than half of the effort. and lifts, holds, or supports the trunk or limbs, but provides less than half of the effort versus more than half. So I can sit there and go, oh, okay, now I get it. So either way, it's a great tool. And I strongly recommend, if you need it, to use it, because it goes all the way through every single question. Same thing that you have available today, but not sure if you knew it was there in your current POC, but it carries over here as well. On the functional abilities, you will just go down the page responding to your answers. There are some of these that are not on in your environment. I didn't get my environment exactly matching based upon John and my discussion in our build. But once you get to the bottom of the page, you hit done. And that particular tile is charted. So same feel, work your way from the top down and always end with done, and that saves your work. Clicking back on that resident charting, that's really kind of a key, is how to get to those areas. My intake is not blue, but if I need to chart on them, here's where I'm going to see all of my available tiles. And if I need to chart, say, lunch this afternoon, I have my plate size with the images of what none would look like versus eating 1 to 25, 26 to 50, or 51 to 75. And it's as simple as clicking the tile. And now that we're on intakes, you will also see the date and time, which will default to what time it is right now. If I need to adjust the time to a couple hours ago, I can use this little up arrow and say, well, that was actually more around noon. And then done. And you'll still see that last charted date and time. Each time noting that whatever I'm charting on is on here. And if I go back, I'm using that resident charting. Now, if I have, maybe I'm monitoring the dining room and I'm clearing trays for a full table and I have Jake here and then I have 3 other people that I need to record. If I'm on the intakes page and I open this up and I go to another resident, I will start on the next resident on that same intakes page, which is an easy way to go to the next one and say what they had, and Daniel, etc. So you can see how quickly I can get trays done, especially if I put tray tickets in my pocket that I've scribbled on and I can chart them all. Or we have that batch charting option. So the batch charting, if I had several individuals to chart for, under tasks, I would click on this tabular, come down to intakes, batch charting. And again, weight will work the same as intakes. So I won't show both of them today, but they work the same way. First, I load up that particular intakes. And up here at the top, you're going to be able to put your date, the time taken. So if I need this all to be about maybe 12:15, here's the taken by. It's going to default to myself. If it was done by somebody else, I could change the name. And then which type. So if I'm doing all of my lunch trays, now I'm setting this up for my date and time. What am I charting? And then I just have to select which residence. So when I click here, here's all of my units, and I can say which units I need to include. Show the residents. Now all of those residents are on the page, and you can see their names over here on the left. And you can see if somebody is not in-house based upon census, they will show this little icon. And if you hover over it, residents discharged. And you basically are able to then instead go down your list for what you have for each resident. And that charting will be getting done on this mass entry page. Once you get through those that you've done, and you can skip anybody who you don't have and hit save and complete, it'll save that charting for all of those residents. You can see a temporary, those 5 residents just were charted on, and it'll bring me right back into Care Assist, where I can return to my resident task list. Okay, so same thing, whether you're doing it here or up here, it's just whichever preference you have. Vital signs, if we have any vital signs like weights to enter, you have your vital signs item. You can see last charted date and times. And again, same charting, new location, look and feel. Once you're in here, you'll navigate really quickly. The things I like to call out, if I'm entering a weight, here you can see red stars. Red stars are your minimum entry before you can get done. So see how this done is grayed out. So if I enter the weight and the type, routine, admission, or baseline, my scale that was used, then I have my date and time optional to update, then I can do my done, and now my weight has been charted. And again, you also have a batch weight up here, depending upon which is more convenient for you at the time. Here's an example where you can see Chester has a lot more banner flags on his. So that's intakes. Outputs is the same as intakes, same concept, except it's outputs. Vitals. Behavior. Behavior is one that is going to be 100% new to you because this behavior tile did not exist in the POC you use today. Okay, so this is going to be triggered for Q shift to be charted on. So I'm going to show you this one and be a little more detailed. When I click on behaviors, you will see document if the resident had any behaviors and document all that apply. If the resident or I observed no behaviors on my shift, right here at the top is no behaviors occurred, and then I just hit done. Okay. That's if nothing occurred, and that would take away that blue coloring. Now, if I observe behaviors, the way those work is down the page here, you can see we have physical and verbal behaviors directed towards others and a grouping that falls in that category. We have socially inappropriate behaviors and a grouping that falls in that categorization. And then we also have other behaviors not directed towards others, which many times this is more so where the aid role might be recording things or as directive. So a lot of times aides are talking about wandering, pacing, or even exit seeking, but it could be any of these, okay? But on the page, I'm going to say that Chester was exit seeking. So I'm going to select the behavior that I observed. Once I select the behavior observed, you have this first question is how many minutes did that behavior occur? This does not have a red star. It's not required. But if you do have minutes, you would just type it in. Okay. But many times we're not looking at time for our behaviors. It could be a very distinct resident care plan that we're doing minutes. So many usually will ignore that. Okay, but use it as applicable. Where we really want to get into is here's where we can place our interventions that we used to try to alter the exit seeking. So if I redirected, offered food and fluids, and toileted, I can do as many interventions that I've done, which has been very hard. There's not an easy way for this to be charted without Care Assist. Okay, this is really great charting. So by entering these 3 checks of the tile, it now creates a secondary question for each one, asking whether it was effective or not. So if the redirect didn't work, if the offering food or fluids didn't work, and the toileting did work, you can see how I can say what I've done and what worked and what didn't. And then I have an optional comments. So if I don't have to put comments in, but if that exit seeking was ×5, toilet with BM, for instance, if you wanted to put that on because maybe that's really what was relevant to why the patient was exit seeking, they needed to toilet, you could do that. So that's something where you all can expand internally as a company and what sorts of additional items you do want your team to be writing, but that is optional. Nurses will also use this behavior charting. And so nurses might put in these comments of like nothing, non-pharmacological interventions were not effective. They might then put in here PRN Ativan to be given. And then in EMAR, they might be giving a PRN. So between this, you're both going to be charting behaviors in the same space so that we have a singular report and we can see which behaviors are happening, when they're happening, what interventions we're using, what works, what doesn't work. And so all that's going to be in a single report, which is amazing. Okay. And then with that, you do have the date and time adjustment that could be done should you need to. Otherwise, you just hit done. And that's going to be your charting for behaviors. And that is 100% new. It did not exist in the POC you're using currently. So as we're getting ready to wrap up, mood, bowel and bladder, all of those things are on. And then you might also have tasks. Let me jump to another resident. If I go to tasks, looks like I turned off the wrong one. I don't have a tasks showing from how I set up the environment, but tasks will be its own tile right here. And when you click on that, you'll see anything that came from orders and care plan. And those ones will then prompt you with a done or not done. And if you say not done, it'll say why. Did they refuse, combative, etc. And so really all of your charting's the same. What I'm going to race into is after you've done charting, this view look back, okay? If I need to see what's been charted or I need to make a correction, clicking on view look back is going to show me the charting history for 48 hours. And I'm going to see all of the charting over that 48-hour time span. And I will have amend and mark invalid links next to my own charting, okay? If I didn't chart it, this column will be empty. And if I do need to make a correction to something, amend, you'll find the amend link to the left of the applicable entry. Here, maybe I typed in 150.65, I needed 155. I make that correction. And then down here at the bottom, I need to say the amend reason, was it an incorrect data or more data available? These are the same responses you have today. It's just the new way to do it, the new space and the new, but all of the responses are the same. And I hit amend, and that particular entry has now been updated in the history. In the point of care history reports, you'll be able to see the history of what it was and what it was changed to. But on this page, you'll see what was completed. And if you need to mark invalid, like my no behaviors occurred, I put that on the wrong resident, I can find that correct, that particular entry, click mark invalid. Here you're going to see the date and time of the charting. And then I can say, why am I invalidating? Wrong resident, mark invalid. Again, same responses you have today. You're able to do the same actions. It's just how do you do it in the new space? So nothing's changed in what you're charting, okay? And that's all of those charting items. As this goes through, you'll of course continue until all of your resident tiles are white. And of course, it'll reset for the next shift just like it does today. Now, the additional caveat items are this, is that on your dashboard, you will have on your dashboard, there we go, it's updating. You have a couple widgets that will show you. So clinical leads, you can choose to use these additional widgets. One of them is POC tasks due. This is a current snapshot of how many things are currently blue that need to be done before the shift turns over. So at a glance, if you're seeing really high numbers close to the end of the shift, that's telling you that the staff on shift today hasn't started their charting and they're waiting till the very end of their shift and they're probably not going to finish before the time flips over. If those numbers are turning and getting lower at the beginning of my shift, they would be really high. And at the end of my shift, they would start to dwindle down to 3s, 2s, 1s, and then off of here. Theoretically, this list should be empty before the end of the shift. That would be at a glance, you know, all the charting is done. So it's just a way to be on top of what's currently happening right now, okay, which didn't exist as a component for you in POC today, okay? Now, the same report that you use for POC compliance today is the same report you're going to use for Care Assist. So under facility reports, you still have your POC point of care compliance, skilled nursing. Actually, my report's off in this environment. You still have your compliance one. It's actually missing in this environment. My environment was broken yesterday, so they fixed it and now some things reset. But you'll still run that same report that you would have. I'm gonna flip over here real quick for your environment. So what I mean by that is if you run facility report and you come to this one, point of care compliance skilled nursing, that's what you use in the POC you have right now, no difference. So you would run it for today, yesterday through today for your shift, And I'll actually run this real quick for yesterday. So nothing changes on that, the same reporting aspect, okay? And I strongly recommend when we do start run this report each shift or each day to see where you ended up. So like right now we can see that we're at, we have 32 pages on here from yesterday. And if we look at the beginning of the report, these are the answers that did not get answered. And if I go all the way to the end of the report, you'll see by unit and shift how many total items are scheduled, how many were answered, and what the overall percentage compliance is. And that'll be broken down by unit, section. And at the end of the physical report, it'll tally up your overall compliance, and then you can monitor. So as that number, if it dips or rises, that will then be, increase or do some one-on-one in services or whatnots. But otherwise, that's really point of care in a nutshell of the charting new location. The newest items is the login process changes, the ability to make that we talked about, and looking at white tiles or blue highlighted tiles instead of red outlines, and you're charting to turn all of the tiles white, but you still have the same access. So you can mark invalid and edit your own responses, and you use the same reports. Any comments, questions, concerns from anyone that you want to ask before we wrap up?
I have some questions, but I wanna allow the CNAs to ask questions if they have
Yeah.
anything related to POC here.
Okay, sounds good. What do we have from the aid roles?
You guys have
Okay,
it? Yeah.
When do we start? When is this going to start?
Yeah, so your start, I'm going to look ahead for a minute on my calendar because I don't have it off the top of my head, so give me 1 second. I know I train your nurses on the 1st on how to do EMAR, which is Friday, and then start use is, hang tight,
8/27? No.
it's earlier than that, I think. Hold
Start
on.
use support.
There it is. Nope, wrong one. Sorry, I'm looking ahead on my calendar. Sorry, I didn't have that one ready for you. So give me a second. It might be the 28th, actually. I'm getting close to that date.
1 month.
There we go. Yes, August 27th. So it's Wednesday, the 27th. Basically what this does is it gives you the training now, enough time to inform and train the remainder of your staff, and then we'll flip that on. The nice thing with your when does this start, on the day that it switches, you're just gonna all of a sudden have your kiosk will no longer show the old way, and you'll just start logging into the new way. And what I would say is before that day, instead of waiting until that day for all of the aides to log in, I would be using the week leading up to that and have everybody log in, update their passwords so that they've had some practice with the login process prior to start use day. Because usually that's really the biggest learning curve is just the new login process.
The new login process.
Blanca, can you mute your button if you guys are done? There's a lot of noise.
Sorry.
Do you have anyone else have a question?
Follow-up questions?
Stephanie or John,
Yes.
do we have to update the staff's username? If they got one a long time ago, but they haven't really used it, do we start
Right.
over?
Good call there, Mary. So I believe what Michelle's doing is, so we already trained on how to use the admin tool, and then that's how users get an SSO ID, which allows for them to use this. And then many times, and I'll double check with Michelle, but usually what they do is they'll do like a mass reset for your aides, and they'll be like, okay, everybody's been reset to this particular password because they don't know that default password since they've used pins in the past. And then they'll say, okay, and that's when they'll be like, okay, start having them do this. So normally we do that for you, but Michelle coordinates that. Okay, Mary. And then she'll say, okay, they've all been done. Everybody's bit password now is welcome one with an exclamation point, for instance. And then they'll be able to log in. It's really the same account. It's just been kind of like upgraded.
But then do they need to get a new username?
No,
If they don't,
they will
if they
just,
don't know it, we'll have to give them a new username.
Right. So we'll send you like a Excel file, and it'll be like, here's all the aids that we uploaded or upgraded, and then you'll just look on that and be like, here's your username is this, and you'll hand those out because yes, they never saw that username before.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good question. What else do we have for questions?
I have a question. So the events and observations, those are all going to stay the same then, right?
Yeah, those don't have anything to do with point of care.
Okay.
Nothing changes there. Yeah, great.
All right, perfect.
Anything else?
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll start creating the usernames for our CNAs then.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I'll double check with Michelle because if they're converting, you don't need to do anything quite yet. So hang tight until you hear from Michelle. That might be something she's already doing for you
Okay.
because they already have accounts. They just need to be upgraded as SSOs, and sometimes we convert those for you. So hold tight before you do that, okay, John?
Okay. All right. And
Yeah.
then last question is the SSO website. That's the website where we create users, right? And that's the only site we would be able to use that and do that.
Correct. Now
Yeah,
for you, yep, and for you for that, where we're talking about the admin tool, if you have new staff members, then yes, I would create them here, anyway, if they're brand new. And yours looks different, but yes, you would come into this and that'll be from new users after Michelle initiates whatever they're doing to help you out with that portion. And then that mass reset, and then all new users you'll be creating in this space from that point forward. And I know this doesn't look like the one because I'm logged in, but.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Anything
all right.
else?
I think that's it. Of course, we have a lot of anxiety as this kind of gets closer, but I'm sure we can get this
Yeah.
going.
Absolutely. Now, what I would say is I would literally, for Care Assist point of care, it's usually a very easy transition for your users because it's really just same thing, new space, and it's very easy to use. Like, and you have new hires later on,
Mhm.
you can have successful people that got, I mean, I don't recommend it, but they could have a 10-minute exposure. Here's your login, here's the tiles, chart this, here's how it works, and people can very quickly pick it up. And remember that we have all of those in product. We have all those in product icons that I pointed out. And if you use those, so if somebody's brand new or they're like forgot, have them use those and those will help them navigate through. And you're like, oh yeah, that's easy. So point of care is really easy to adopt. So
Okay.
really successful.
I promise. One last question. How do I get a hold of the video recording?
Once I wrap this recording up and start it has to process, basically. It takes a little bit of time, and then I will send it via an email. It'll be a link, and then when you receive it, what you'll want to do is click on it and it'll allow you to download it, and I would download and save because the link I send is only good for 30 days. Then it expires, so you'll want to save it so you have it permanent.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, not a problem. All right. Well, great job, everybody. I'm going to stop that recording now then. And appreciate